At Harvard University, a group of world-class mathematicians and scientists gathered in the grand lecture hall. On the enormous blackboard, a single equation stretched across the wall. It wasn't just a problem, it was the unsolvable problem. For decades, great minds had attempted it, only to admit defeat. The professor in charge, Dr. Franklin, a man known for his sharp intellect and even sharper tongue, stood before the audience. He tapped the chalk against the board. "This," he declared, "is impossible." A puzzle with no solution. Entire research teams have failed. If anyone believes otherwise, step forward. The room buzzed with whispers. Students exchanged doubtful glances. Professors crossed their arms, confident that no one would dare to challenge him. It was a test of genius, and no ordinary human could pass it. Then at the very back of the room, a hand shot up. Not a professor's hand, not even a student's. It belonged to a small boy, barely tall enough to be seen above the crowd. 9-year-old Ethan, visiting Harvard with his father, a janitor working in the hall that day, raised his voice. "I want to try," he said, his eyes wide with determination. The crowd laughed. "A child, solving what Harvard couldn't?" Dr. Franklin frowned. "Young man, this isn't a riddle from your storybooks. This is mathematics beyond imagination. You can't possibly—" But Ethan didn't lower his hand. "You said it's impossible, but maybe no one tried to look at it the way I do." The room fell silent. For the first time, Dr. Franklin hesitated. Something in the boy's fearless voice sparked curiosity. After a long pause, the professor stepped aside, gesturing to the board. "Very well," he said. "Show us." Ethan walked slowly toward the massive blackboard. The chalk felt heavy in his tiny fingers. Dozens of eyes followed him. Professors whispered to each other, students held back laughter, and Dr. Franklin folded his arms, waiting for the boy to fail. But Ethan wasn't nervous. He had always loved puzzles, ever since he could remember. At home, while other kids played video games, Ethan sat with his notebooks, scribbling down riddles, patterns, and numbers. His father often joked, "Son, you see the world like it's one big puzzle." Standing before the problem, Ethan tilted his head. The equation was terrifyingly long, filled with complex notations and symbols he barely recognized. Yet instead of panicking, he broke it down in his mind, piece by piece. He thought of it like building blocks, the way he arranged his Legos. Minutes passed. The crowd grew restless. Some began to chuckle again. Dr. Franklin tapped his watch impatiently. "Well, are you finished pretending?" But Ethan ignored the noise. His small hand moved quickly, sketching out shapes and numbers. He didn't solve it the way a mathematician would. Instead, he searched for patterns, shortcuts, things adults often overlooked because they thought too logically. Suddenly, his chalk screeched across the board as he circled a hidden symmetry in the equation. Gasps echoed through the hall. Even Dr. Franklin leaned forward, his frown faltering. "Wait," whispered one professor. "Did he just—" The boy turned, his face glowing with excitement. "It's not impossible," Ethan said softly. "You were looking at it backwards." Dr. Franklin's eyes widened. The boy had uncovered the key, something none of them had even considered. And for the first time, the impossible didn't seem so impossible anymore. The entire hall froze. Every professor, every student, even the janitors in the back leaned closer, staring at the scrawled numbers and shapes. Ethan, the 9-year-old boy, had done what none of them dared. He had cracked open the problem. Dr. Franklin's throat went dry. He stepped closer to the board, his eyes scanning the boy's work. He wanted to find a mistake, had to find a mistake, but the logic was sound. Ethan's childlike simplicity had uncovered a pattern buried deep in the chaos, a thread that, when pulled, unraveled the impossible knot. "How?" Dr. Franklin whispered. Ethan shrugged. "I just thought about it differently. Grown-ups always think things have to be complicated, but sometimes the answer hides in plain sight." The words struck the hall like lightning. Students exchanged stunned looks. Professors muttered under their breath. Some were furious. How could a child succeed where they failed? Others were in awe, clapping their hands to their mouths as if they had witnessed history itself. Then came silence. A heavy, expectant silence. All eyes turned to Dr. Franklin, the man who had declared the problem unsolvable. Would he admit defeat? For a long moment, he simply stared at Ethan. His pride wrestled with the truth. But then slowly he raised his hands and began to clap. The sound echoed through the hall, sharp and deliberate. 1 clap, 2, 3, and then the entire room erupted into applause. Cheers thundered against the walls, whistles and shouts rising. Ethan stood frozen, wide-eyed, as the most brilliant minds in the world applauded him, a boy who had refused to believe in impossible. After the applause, chaos broke out. Professors crowded around the blackboard, arguing and pointing. Some scribbled furious notes. Others demanded to see every step Ethan had taken. Dr. Franklin raised his voice. "Quiet, one at a time." He turned to Ethan. "Young man, explain. How did you see this solution?" Ethan scratched his head. "I didn't see numbers. I saw patterns. Like when you fold paper and the shapes line up. It's like a mirror. The equation was the same. You just needed to flip it." The hall erupted again. Some professors laughed in amazement. Others shook their heads. One old scholar shouted, "This is absurd. Are we to believe a 9-year-old solved what we could not?" Another snapped back, "But you can't deny the proof." "Look at the result." Soon the hall was divided. Half believed the boy had opened the door to a breakthrough. The other half refused to accept it, clinging to their pride. Through it all, Ethan stood quietly, almost shy now. He wasn't trying to prove anyone wrong. He had just wanted to try. His father, standing at the back with tears in his eyes, whispered, "That's my boy." Dr. Franklin silenced the crowd once more. "Enough. Whether you believe it or not, the fact remains. This boy has done something extraordinary. And perhaps we, in our arrogance, forgot what it means to see with fresh eyes." The words sank into the hearts of everyone present. Slowly, even the most stubborn professors lowered their heads, realizing that knowledge wasn't only about years of study, it was also about imagination. News of Ethan's discovery spread like wildfire across Harvard's campus. Within hours, reporters swarmed the university gates. Headlines screamed across newspapers and online, "9-year-old solves impossible Harvard puzzle." Cameras flashed as journalists crowded into the lecture hall. Everyone wanted to see the boy genius who had humbled Harvard. Ethan, overwhelmed, clung to his father's hand. "Dad, I didn't mean to cause so much trouble," he whispered. His father smiled. "Son, you didn't cause trouble. You showed the world that sometimes the smallest voices have the biggest answers." In a special ceremony, Harvard invited Ethan onto the stage. Dr. Franklin himself presented the boy with a medal of recognition. "Today," he announced, "we learned something greater than mathematics. We learned that impossible is just a word. And sometimes it takes a child to remind us." The audience stood and applauded again. Ethan blushed, wishing he could run back home and play with his Legos. But he also felt something deep inside, a spark of confidence, a belief that his way of seeing the world mattered. That night, Harvard professors debated late into the hours, analyzing the boy's solution. Some admitted they had been blind to the simplicity of it. Others marveled at how a child's perspective could change everything. But all of them agreed on one truth. History had been made that day. Years later, the story of the 9-year-old who solved the unsolvable problem became legendary. Ethan's name appeared in textbooks, not as a mathematician, but as a reminder that genius isn't always about age or degrees. It's about perspective. Ethan didn't become a professor right away. He went back to being a kid, riding his bike, building with Legos, and doodling puzzles in his notebook. But the world kept watching. Invitations poured in from universities, research centers, even governments. All wanted to meet the boy who had outsmarted Harvard. Dr. Franklin, now older and humbler, often told his students, "Never underestimate a mind unchained by rules. Knowledge without imagination is a cage. That boy freed us all." As for Ethan, he carried that day in his heart, not as a victory, but as proof that believing in yourself can turn the impossible into possible. When asked years later how he had solved it, he simply smiled and said, "I didn't try to be smarter. I just tried to see differently." And so, the lesson lived on, not only in Harvard's halls, but in every classroom and every child who dared to believe that even the greatest challenges could be solved if you look at them from the right angle. 'Cause in the end, the impossible is only waiting for someone brave enough to try.